Hello, I'm Leroy Garcia, and this is Blue Rain Gallery Podcast. Today in my home studio, we are honored to have a wonderful young man, a great painter, Ryan Singer. Welcome.
Thank you.
For most of our audience, they're unfamiliar with your work. Ryan will be participating in a group show called Crossroads, opening next Friday at Blue Rain Gallery. And we wanted to give our audience the opportunity to meet Ryan for the first time. He's really impressed me over the years. I've watched him mostly on Instagram, which you can find him on Facebook. But what captured me about his work was the perspective of Diné and Star Wars or sci-fi in a mix. Mm-hmm. And but you capture mostly life, but there's humor to it in there. And I really enjoy watching that. It seems like the work that we're getting for this show, Ryan's evolving, which all artists do, into more of a realistic format. And we'll let him talk about some of these things as we go along. Ryan, tell us a little bit about where you're from, your heritage, and maybe some of the early influences in your life.
Okay, well, I was born in Cedar City, Utah in '73. My mom and dad were going to school up there at Southern University State College. And I think I stayed in there until I was about 4 or 5. And then eventually we moved back to the reservation. And I would say I'm originally from Tuba City, Arizona, because that's where my mom is from. And that's where my grandma's from. So that's, in our culture, that's where we're from, or is our mom. And my dad is from the Great Mountain area, just north of Flagstaff, almost towards Grand Canyon area. Mm-hmm. And so they're fairly close in those areas. So I kind of grew up in that whole little region of the western side of the Navajo reservation, Flagstaff, Page, that whole area. Yeah. And I remember just bits and pieces of my childhood when I was younger. But my dad was a teacher, so he taught at several places. So we moved all over the different parts of the reservation. So I lived in Kayenta for a while, Tuba City for a while, in Winter Rock, that's where I graduated from. And I also moved back to Utah for a while. And when I was in junior high, and I was up there for about 2 or 3 years. And so all these different, I didn't really stay in one place too long. I would always move around a lot.
You're almost like a military family.
Kind of, yeah. But I just remember all these different experiences. What was interesting about being an artist and moving to another school was I didn't even have to really come out and meet people, say, hey, this is blah, 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 or I wasn't really that social or whatever, but I would just start drawing, and kids would automatically see that, say, hey, this guy can draw. So then they would just befriend me, and and then just automatically became friends with people. So it was kind of cool to be able to do that. So I didn't, by the time I was junior high or high school, I would just pop in and just start drawing.
Oh, nice.
And that's kind of how I got to meet people, and they would be really respectful and oh, this guy's cool, he can draw. So, but by the time I think I was first grade, kindergarten, Star Wars had come out.
Yeah.
That movie just blew my mind.
Mine as well.
Yeah. I still have dreams of that very first movie, because it's not the same. Because they cut out parts of that movie, but I still have dreams of that movie. That's parts that they cut out. The original trilogy or part of that trilogy. Anyway.
Did you read the books as well?
I read a couple of books. Some of the, there's 1 million books, but I think I've read a couple of them. But I haven't gotten to the whole universe thing. I haven't even watched some of the Clone Wars or any of that stuff.
Have you watched Boba Fett?
Yeah, Book of Boba Fett. Yeah.
Mandalorian?
Yeah. We watch those every time they come out.
Yeah.
But I was kind of bummed out that the episodes or the series is over.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we really got into it. Me and my family, all of us would just sit there and watch it.
So how'd you merge that? So you have Navajo culture and you have sci-fi. What gave you the idea to merge all that stuff together?
Well, when I was about that age, like 4 or 5, I was already drawing, and it just kind of like, it would take me away, like whatever I was doing. Like I could just go in my room and I would just almost like disappear or go to a whole nother world. And I would just focus so much that I could just like, it was kind of intense, like I would just get into it. And it was fun, and I would just sit there for hours. Like hours would go by, I wouldn't even know, and then I would come up with something, or I would copy comic books, Kiss records, whatever, just all these different things, like album covers, and
So let's talk about that. How has also music influenced you in your work?
well,
Because you brought up those covers.
yeah, about that same age, like I had an older sister. She listened to music, like I think all of her family. We had a turntable in the living room. My mom and dad had their records. I had my own record player in my room, and I had like kind of like my own little record collection. My sister had her own like Donna Summers and like
The Go-Go's and all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, like kind of like that disco stuff. And then I had like Kiss and AC/DC, Black Sabbath, and I had older cousins that would influence me. Like, hey, check this out, listen to this, And then it was just all metal. Everything was all metal. So I was just like just got into it at a younger age, and I just started buying more music or recording like records and putting them on cassettes and just listen to them.
So when you're listening to music, is that also the time when you're drawing and stuff? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Yep. That creates the zone, huh?
It helps. It helps, sort of like with the whole process of taking me away. Like disappearing for a while or going to a whole nother world. It feels like you're transported, and then the music is a part of that. It helps. It kind of like. I don't know. It just, and also motivates you too. Like especially if it's like fast or whatever, and or just like there's a mood that kind of like hits you, and you just kind of like want to just be creative, I guess. And I remember just really listening to like metal and just that sound of the guitars and just like like that. And I think as I got older, when I was up in Utah, I heard Black Flag play Louie Louie. It's a cover song.
Right.
And I was just like, holy crap, this is it was like, it just
nice.
it just blew my mind, because everything was metal all the way up to that point, because everything was like real perfect guitar solos, and everything was just like, just everything was produced, so well. And then there's just like this punk aesthetic, just like sound is just blew my mind.
So you had a migration from heavy metal to punk, because I see a lot of your posts. You do a lot of punk now too, right?
Yeah, and there was like in the 80s, it was kind of like this crossover when I was about 14, 15, where there was like metal, like there was Misfits, Metallica, Suicidal Tendencies, all these different bands that weren't necessarily punk, but they're
like in the middle.
Kind of, yeah. There was a crossover. They were kind of like, you could listen to this and listen to that, and you wouldn't be punk or you wouldn't be metal. It would kind of be in between. It was like this whole, like skaters would be into that whole like aesthetic too. So I would hang out with skaters, listen to the music, and then I would draw, and I skated for a while and I didn't really get good at it. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to draw, because I'm better at drawing than I can skate. And I would just hang out and
save your knees and your elbows.
Yeah, I've hit my elbows a few times, sprained my ankle and stuff like that. I was like, I think I'm gonna save my hands so I can keep drawing.
Longevity.
Yeah. So yeah.
So let's go back to the res. How because you moved around so much, did your parents involve you culturally, with like ceremonially and stuff on the res?
Yeah, that was all automatic. I mean, I didn't really have a choice. They're just like, let's go.
Yeah.
We're gonna go do this and do that. But it wasn't like forced upon me. Like it wasn't. I just.
It's just part of the family.
Yeah.
Like we're doing this.
It's just something you had to do, and you just kind of accepted it. But after a while, I mean, I'm glad that I was a part of that and understood all these things that were happening, things that we did. And I think those are kind of like special moments.
Well, it comes out in your paintings, your sci-fi paintings. There's a lot of tradition that you've captured, even
Yeah.
though there's an R2D2 there.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. A lot of the ideas I got were from those times when I'd go visit my grandmother. My parents, sometimes they would just like dump me off at my grandma's house for the summer, like, because
Good.
the school, I didn't have school for 2 months, so they like dropped me off for a month or two. And at first it was really hard because, there was like no running water, no electricity, no TV, nothing,
Old school.
no
way.
telephone, hauling water. Like at night, you can't stay up and draw because it's just like a little light. And
Yeah,
everybody goes-
candle.
yeah, you basically go to bed when the sun goes down. And but it was fun. And what I would do was herd sheep pretty much all day. Every day I would get up. They'd wake me up early, and then we'd take the sheep out. And I would have like my Star Wars toys with me, and I would take them with me. And basically the sheep would be out like eating, grazing, and I would just like find myself under a rock or under a tree and just play, or just have like sort of adventures and, like pretend I was like in the movie with, like a Star Wars movie and just, play all day basically. So a lot of those paintings are memories of those times. Mm-hmm. So they kind of get fused together, it's sort of like in my own world. So I'm like, depicting that. And so I thought about that, and it's just like the possibilities are endless, like what I could come up with.
Well, you've had an incredible career as far as the imagery. It's very innovative.
Thank you.
Who are some of the people that have influenced you the most?
As far as artists, well, my uncle Ed Singer, very first, my dad's brother, he had a studio up in Gray Mountain, and then we had a ranch up there. Was a Singer Ranch, and then all my dad's brothers and stuff like that, they were all cowboys. They'd hang out there, have like, they would ranch and, cowboy and ride horses and stuff like that. And my uncle had a studio in there. I remember his skylight would shine down, and I would see him from the window, and he'd be there painting. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of like something I saw. I was like, wow, that's cool. So then I would run around and then, start drawing and pretend I was an artist or whatever, drawing spaceships and dinosaurs and stuff like that. And
I forgot about the dinosaurs.
yeah, I was a big fan of dinosaurs. Still am.
Did you watch Land of the Last One?
Yeah. Yeah. Every morning, or every Saturday morning, that would come on. It would like come on like 5 or 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And like he was kind of a big influence. And then I used to see Shanto Begay and Bahi Whitethorn posters everywhere, like growing up as, like maybe preteen or just a kid and stuff like that. And they were getting fairly popular like in the 80s, and I would see their posters all over the place in Flagstaff and stuff like that. So I would see that, and I was like, wow, that's cool, because I would see Shanto's work, and I would notice that it was sort of that impressionistic Van Gogh style. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Bahi had his own style. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, that's so cool, because that's Navajo, but it's a whole different,
It wasn't the traditional painting that you were probably used to seeing.
Yeah, because
these guys were avant-garde, man, at that time.
Yeah, because I've seen books from like the 50s and 60s, and I mean, I still respect all that stuff, but it was just totally different. It was way.
I think when the indigenous peoples got away from like being told what to paint, and just painted like your influence, like you're on the res, but you like sci-fi, and you're a rock and roller, and it's all coming together. Mm-hmm. It's more organic in these days, starting from the TC canon forward, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's kind of the transitional period where freedom existed in art amongst the native populations.
Yeah, I think it was probably like after the whole civil rights kind of movement, a lot of indigenous people understood that like the being indigenous and having that, being proud and, like having that heritage, and then also being able to have a voice and say whatever you want to say, like speak your mind and stuff like that. And I think a lot of those artists kind of picked up on that too.
Yeah.
And probably were influenced by Fritz Scholder, T.C. Cannon, and kind of just went with it,
Yeah, there was a lot of people that broke the mold at that time. It's funny, it was a whole movement, mid 60s,
Early
forward.
70s,
Yeah,
yeah.
early 70s. And I think about even the Pueblo culture, Tony Day and Helen Hardin, some great influences. What about David Bradley?
Yeah, David Bradley, I think I started to see his stuff in the late 90s, early 2000. And I didn't connect his name with his images, but I'd seen his images and I was like, wow, that is so cool. Especially when I would go to the Herd, I would see like paintings of the Herd. I think I might have met him once, but I never really got to like really, talk with him or whatever. But I've been a big fan of his work since at least the early 2000s.
He's a wonderful person, suffering through ALS at this point, and he's battled heroically. But his influence is big and important and long lasting. But your paintings remind me of his a lot because David was probably a little bit more had a lot more humor behind what he's doing.
Yeah.
But he did capture, native life in a contemporary way with all these figures around that were historic. He just kind of would find a way to integrate them. But no differently than you integrating the sci-fi into the Navajo culture. On the res.
Yeah. It's kind of tricky. You have to figure a way how to say something, but it has to be sort of subtle. Sometimes there's like layers of like discussion or dialogue going on. You can say stuff about culture, being personal, and then stuff that people understand like universally. So there's all these different layers that you can put stuff into.
There's a lot of dialogue in a painting in a lot of different directions.
So I try to make it interesting for myself, like what I want to say. So I throw all these like sort of like hidden meanings or little subtle symbols and stuff like that I understand and hopefully people pick up on. And then some of them are obvious and some of them are just kind of like hidden. And I have like this little thing where I like to play sort of like, I'm not playing a game, but I like doing all these like little things that maybe I might only understand and somebody else might not get it, and then it's fun for me to do that because it's
Well, art, I've owned a gallery for a long time. I've been in the business 32 years. But when people come into painting or to see a painting, it's best not to interpret it for them. They interpret it the way they see it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways around this. But I like the fact that you have all these dialogues integrated, but it makes people think. And they might not get the same message that you're trying to convey, but they're seeing a message in there.
Yeah, a lot of the paintings I do, they're not consistently this, like some of them are humorous, some of them might just be about food, some of them might be like the Long Walk. I use those Legos in that Long Walk piece.
Yeah.
There's a whole like layers of meaning that could just go into that, and the Fisher Price toys with the boarding school, those things are. Like for me, I remember playing with those toys, and so that's a personal connection. I never went to boarding school, but I'm influenced by that boarding school era, those generations of people in my family and my friends and my relatives. So they were all affected by it, and eventually it affects me generationally.
Yeah.
So those pieces are important to me. Like I'm trying to educate and also. Say something historical about Native Americans or indigenous people. So those pieces are important. So I have all these different dialogues I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a challenge to come up with all these ideas and ways of saying things that I need to say or I need to speak about.
Yeah, I see that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm glad you've put that all together for us, Tell us about the new direction that you're doing right now, like the stuff that's coming to Blue Rain this next week.
These portraits that I...
like this piece over here.
Yeah, this portrait I have was an assignment I had at UNM last fall. And the assignment was to use different kinds of paint. So there's house paint, there's acrylics, and there's oils. And I had to use 2 patterns and a certain amount of colors. I think it was 9 colors. So I had to figure that out. And I think before I even started the painting, I already had it in my head as the teacher was discussing the assignment, like the criteria of the assignment. And I was writing it down and stuff like that, and just kind of taking notes. And I think I might have even sketched it out, like what it was going to look like. I didn't have the colors, like right. I did several sketches on my Procreate iPad thing, and but I had the image of the woman. One of my friends, I used his picture of his grandmother. And
nice.
I asked him if I could use that image because he's a photographer. And he told me to go for it. So nice. I used that image.
Well, I noticed on the image, is that a first phase blanket in the background? Or second phase? Or?
It's a chief blanket.
It's a chief blanket.
Yeah,
right?
but it's more, I put that pink in there. There's no that colored pink. So it's kind of a more contemporary.
But more of the stripes.
Yeah, the stripes are right on with the chief blanket.
Yeah.
But I added those colors just to make it a little bit vibrate, or little vibrant colors.
It was a beautiful painting, and
Thank you.
I've seen another one in process that you posted on Instagram. I think that's wonderful that you're pushing yourself, Ryan. Longevity in an art career is about innovation. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of artists, they get stuck in. They get innovative for a point, and then they go with it and never progress beyond that point. And you seem to be pushing yourself, and that's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And that'll bode well for you in your career.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, if you want to evolve and get better and, push yourself, I've been trying to make problems for myself in each sort of piece and figure out the problem as I go through it. Because I think if you don't do that, you don't evolve, you don't improve. I think it's important to grow and use whatever experience you have to get through this certain problem. So I keep trying to come up with a different problem every single time I'm working that also improve and skill and trying something different, trying something new.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself in 10 years as far as your art career?
I don't know. I guess doing.
I threw you a good curveball.
Yeah. It's like 10 years are going to go by so fast.
Let's say more museums, right?
Probably, yeah. I would like to do more museum shows. I would like to be teaching, maybe at a teaching level, teaching art. Maybe at a community sort of like level, giving back to the community. Maybe working with youth or just community members. Talking about art,
I think that's so important. I have a friend who we represent in the gallery, and that's Thomas Breeze Marcus. Mm-hmm. And boy, he has really been an outreach for his community there in Phoenix.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah,
he's cool.
Great guy. But so are you, and I like that idea.
Thank you.
Because we need more of that for our youth, especially on the res. They need ways to express themselves in a productive way.
Yeah, I think people need to communicate more than ever.
Yeah.
And people get stuck, and they don't know how to express whatever they're like men haven't been able to express themselves for so long. I remember. Like people of my father's generation, they weren't able to express how they feel or show emotion, or cry or any of that stuff, And I think as an artist, you can, express all that stuff. If you're angry or sad or whatever you feel, you're able to do that, either in music or any form of art or even just doing stuff for people. I think that is important for us as human beings to be able to connect, and then other people they see that and they'll get influenced by that, and then hopefully they teach that or they do it themselves, and it just kind of keeps going.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, it's an honor that you're taking a chance on Blue Rain Gallery and showing with us this next week through the month of February. We're honored. Thank you for coming today, and hopefully the audience really gets a chance to explore the work of Ryan Singer. It's
Well,
wonderful.
Thanks for the opportunity to be a part of the show. I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to having a show with my friends. And
There's some great talent coming
yeah,
up.
Exactly. So,
Well, I'd like to encourage everybody to subscribe to our podcast. You can do that on all the platforms from Spotify to iTunes to our website, YouTube as well. I also want to encourage everybody to bring art into your everyday life by going to bluerainprintshop.com and exploring all the wonderful imagery on the products that we have. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
thank you.
Yep.
Hey,